Hello and welcome to the Hellraiser blog. Today's blog going to look at a fight that I'm really interested in. It's in the heavyweight division. It's happening in Los Angeles tonight. You can see it on DAZN, and it's Jared Anderson, big prospect. He's not really fought many big names. Probably the best name on his record would be Charles Martin, who he beat, but he didn't really impress against Charles Martin. But Charles Martin's a southpaw. Very long reach. I actually think Charles Martin is much better than he gets credit for, especially in the UK, where people just know him from. This is the guy that got knocked out by Anthony Joshua, and he got disposed of pretty easily, and therefore can't be any good. He is good. Charles Martin is decent. I think he's far better than people give him credit for, and so to be sort of looking a bit scrappy against him when you've not had high-level opponents, certainly in the professionals, I think it's okay. I wouldn't judge Jared Anderson on the fact that Charles Martin gave him problems. Certainly late in the fight, gave him a lot of problems. But yeah, so in that degree, I mean, he won 2 national titles as an amateur, Jared Anderson. So we know that much about him. Also, his coach that he's had up until now, he's now for this fight, he's with Sugar Hill, the coach, Emmanuel Steward's nephew. But I've actually watched his coach, and I think his first coach is very good. But sometimes fighter can be a bit stale. I don't like it generally when fighters jump from one trainer to another, especially when it's just as they're hitting the big time, because often you see coaches who actually aren't that good, but they're very good at convincing the boxer that I'm the best coach for you. I'm not saying that that's what's happened here, but it does happen a lot, and I don't like it. But here we've got a situation where I sort of got a sneaking feeling that it might work well. It might go well. Sugar Hill is nephew, of course, of Emmanuel Steward, and met Emmanuel Steward a couple of times. The one thing I realised and that I loved about Emmanuel, and I learned a lot about Emmanuel Steward, was that he really valued position in the ring and dominating the ring space, especially at important points in the round, where dominating the pace of the fight and the space is really important. And Emmanuel Steward, for me, as a trainer, was the king of that. And when Tyson Fury boxed against Wilder in the second of their trilogy, no one really expected those type of tactics to come from Tyson Fury, to go and take the centre of the ring and to put pressure and heat on the opponent right from Deontay Wilder, who we were reading press releases every day saying, oh, he's the biggest puncher at heavyweight. He's probably one of the biggest punchers ever. And Fury took that centre, and I think that's very relevant to this fight, because Bacoli, he actually moves pretty well on his feet, but it doesn't very often have to move backwards because he's such a big, imposing fighter that generally his tactic is to move forwards and to come through. But I've got a feeling here we might see Jared Anderson actually take that centre of the ring and fight to push Bacoli back. And that's actually very significant. I'll tell you why I think it's significant, because I've seen Bacoli box in the flesh. And I was at the fight, I used to always see him dictate the pace, dominate the ring span. He was just too strong and too much of a handful for anybody. But I saw him against Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter's a very, very good heavyweight. Massively underrated. I think because he's not quite big enough to be like a real big heavyweight. He's sort of someone that needs that bridgerweight division between cruiserweight and heavyweight. But Hunter, for me, I was at York Hall for that fight, and Michael Hunter was walking Martin Bacoli down, and I heard a lot of people at ringside say, "Oh, Bacoli's throwing so many. He's really giving it," but he wasn't. The punches were missing. I've got a trained eye. I watched thousands of fights of boxing, probably tens of thousands. The punches were falling short, and Hunter was keeping Bacoli working all the time. always hitting him. Even if it went with big shots, he was touching him, tapping him, hitting him. Then came a big shot, then it was back to tapping him again. And Hunter moved very well laterally, and Jared Anderson now moves well laterally. One of my very good friends, who's a boxing coach, and I'm not going to mention him because I don't want to put any spotlight on him in a negative way, but he said to me, he said, oh, but the thing is, Jared Anderson's flat-footed. He stands there in front of him, and that's, you know, he's going to get mullered by Bakoli because Bakoli's such an animal and a unit and so strong, which he is. He absolutely is. Right, so Jared Anderson, I think he is a mover. He's not a mover in the traditional sense. He's not like if you look at young Muhammad Ali, like Cassius Clay, when he skipped around the perimeter of the ring, pinging out jabs, lightning fast jabs and moving. Right, that's not what Jared Anderson is. But Jared Anderson does move. If you watch the fights, and I've watched hundreds, literally, I've watched him a lot, really a lot, dozens and dozens of times. He moves very well in close. He's constantly switching his angle of attack. He doesn't bounce out of range. I've heard a lot of people criticising him, saying, oh, but he sometimes walks backwards in a straight line, or he bounces out. Right, what he actually does is something that I used to do. I was boxing at a completely different level, but he sort of, with his back foot, bounces out of range and then bends at the waist, which is very different to just walking back in a straight line, because I understand it, because I used to do it myself. You take the step back hoping that the opponent's going to come at you, and as soon as you see him set his feet, you bend at the waist, so you're moving your head. Shot comes over there, and as soon as the punch, you know you're in range, and you can bring that big shot in. And that's how I view Jared Anderson. I think he does move. I don't have a problem. Maybe his feet could be more fluent side to side laterally, but I see it as a tactic. He comes in, he like dangles a carrot to get the opponent to commit. Then he moves laterally, he slips the shot, and he gets into range. And I think it was against the Ukrainian Andrei, what was his surname? Was it Dimitrenko? I should have written this down. I can't believe that I didn't. But anyway, against him, Anderson gets inside and he's just hitting him and switching the angle of attack and hitting again, staying inside, switches the angle of attack again and hits him. And he gets the stoppage from overwhelming him. And I think if he can do that, obviously Bakoli, I'd say, is a much higher standard than the Ukrainian. I think it's Dimitrenko, his name. Big guy, good, solid journeyman. But got absolutely destroyed by Anderson. Just got, he was trying to hold, and the way that Anderson was still getting his shots off, I thought was very impressive. I think Bakoli would be much harder work than for Anderson, because Bakoli is more skilled, is a better fighter. Bakoli really is a very decent fighter. He didn't get the big fights maybe at the right time, you could say. But look, when I saw him against Hunter, I was at York Hall, just down the road, and Hunter's tactics were perfect. They were so good. I actually felt Hunter could have knocked him out earlier, but I think if he'd have tried to knock him out in the 5th or 6th round, he'd have had to take a lot more risk because Bakoli was still fresher. I think he sort of tormented Bakoli with all this movement and hitting him from angles, and I think that Anderson can do the same thing. In fact, I'm sure that he will do the same thing. I think he might even try and push Bakoli back early on, use his hand speed and his reach to actually push Bakoli back, because fighters that aren't used to going backwards burn a lot more energy if you force them to make moves that their muscle memory is not used to doing. And that's what Fury did against Wilder. He forced Wilder onto the back foot early, and Wilder, his movement was all disjointed, and we know what the result was and what happened. And I think just because of the connection with Sugar Hill, I'm thinking, well, very strong chance that Sugar Hill, he probably really likes that style, that tactic to walk your man down. And I got a very strong feeling that's what he's going to do here, is try and cut the range down and push Bakoli back and force Bakoli to fight at a pace that he's not comfortable with. It was about the 7th round at York Hall when Michael Hunter boxed him. Bakoli was like looking at people at ringside and sort of going, oh, my shoulder. And look, in my time in boxing, I have known fighters to swallow teeth because they didn't want their opponent to get an idea that they were injured, that they'd suffered a disadvantage. So for him to be saying, "Oh, my shoulder," where everyone could see, I could see it. I wasn't far. I was like front row ringside, but I thought to be doing that, it's sort of, even if it is injured, I believe it probably was, but that's not the point. The fact that he was so keen or so open, "Oh, look, my shoulder is," obviously Hunter's seen that, and it would encourage Hunter to capitalise, to take advantage of it. There's also the possibility that the shoulder wasn't the big problem. The problem was that he was spent, that he'd wasted so much energy on trying to load up. He threw loads of punches, but Hunter was just a move ahead of him. And I think Anderson moves better in the pocket than what Hunter does. So I'm thinking, if they're going to push him back, they're inside. You're going to see a situation where Bacoli's forced to work to throw all these punches and burn all this energy. And if he was spent 3 or 4 years ago against Hunter, and now he's 3 or 4 years older, he's heavier. Look, being fat is not being the same as being unfit. And Bacoli has always struck me as a sort of guy who carries weight, but who's fit. So the weight isn't a huge problem. Although to be carrying extra weight, it's a bit like having bags of water on your back if you were to have a fight and carry that much. Like, if it's 5 kilos, that's imagine 5 bottles of water. After a few rounds, that starts to pay dividends. But I think the main problem that Bacoli will have is the fact that I was at that fight, and it was, I've got a trained eye. I've watched so much boxing. He could not keep up with Hunter's movement, and people that were watching it, even people that, some of them work in boxing, were saying to me, "Oh, Bacoli, he just walks through everything, doesn't he? He's really putting it on him." And you can't just say to someone that's nonsense. But I was digesting it, and I was thinking, no, all these punches are missing, and every time that he lets up, he slows down for a second, but he's getting filled in again. And then he'd go to throw a flurry of punches, they'd all miss, and then he was on the receiving end again. And I think that gave a blueprint, and I'm certain that's what we're going to see from Anderson. I think he's going to come forward a lot more than what people expect him to. I think you're going to see flurries of punches once they're inside and sticking inside, where Bacoli really should do better inside, but Anderson's feet are faster. That I'm absolutely certain of. I'm convinced of it. So he'll be moving around, and Bacoli has to nail him. If he does nail him, that'll be it. That can be fight over. One punch, it can be done. We've seen Bacoli really sort of use his punch power, and that's a risk you have to take. If you're a betting man, you have to realise, if he blinks at the wrong spot, this can all go wrong, and we've lost our money, But I think, on the balance of probabilities, I think he's just so much faster. His feet, I've never seen him in the flesh, but I've watched loads of videos of him, and you can see he naturally has that movement. Like I say, not at long range, not like a Muhammad Ali skipping around the outside of the ring, but once he's at close range, he's a nightmare. He's like an angry wasp. That's how I describe him. He's like an angry wasp who's just getting you from all angles, and you can't get rid of him, and that's what I think we're going to see with Bacoli. Like I say, if Bacoli catches him, that will be good night. That can be fight over, and it all amounts to nothing. But my feeling here is that you're going to see Anderson wear him down, using these sort of angry wasp tactics. And he's already shown me, Anderson, that he's very good at that. Like I say, against this is Andre something. I mean, it's Andre Dimitrenko, but he's done it against a few people. He comes in, and he's just a step ahead all the time. And he's landing venomous, powerful punches. And you hear people questioning Jared Anderson because he's saying he's going to get out of the sport. Right, saying I'm retiring, I'm getting out of the sport in boxing talk means you better pay me very well for the next one, because otherwise I'm going to walk away. No, I don't want this. I mean, Jared Anderson, oh, you know, I've got, there's more to me than boxing. What is he going to do outside of boxing? Please. What, he's going to invent a car that flies or something? He's a boxer. That's what he's good at. That's what he'll keep doing. And promoters will just have to keep throwing money at him if they want to keep him on their shows. That's it. And it's not new for boxers to be saying, I'm not in this for the long term, I'm getting out. Maybe that might be their thought. And if they are thinking of getting out before they've even really properly got in, I'd say it's a worry. But I just can't see Anderson being this guy that doesn't like boxing. If you watch him fighting in his fights that he's had previously, in the fights where suddenly there's a moment where he recognises, I've got this guy's number, I've got the beating of him, I know exactly how to proceed and how to take him out, his facial expression changes. He looks like happy to be inflicting. He becomes like a menace. And that's not someone that doesn't like boxing. That's someone that does want to be there. And it's someone that actually takes satisfaction from achieving in that. And that's what I think we're going to see. And that starts tonight. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Guys, thank you for watching. Please, if you like the blog, hit the subscribe button. And please leave your comments. I love reading what other people think. I'm always taking them on board. So feel free to give me your ideas of how you think the fight will progress. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.